Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday. Tuesday, Casual Tuesday. Wednesday, Casual Hump Day. Thursday, Casual Thurs. That's what we call it. And Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, November 10th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Jeet Heer, National Affairs correspondent for The Nation, to look back on this, well, I guess mixed week that was. Also on the program, Israel rejects a ceasefire for hostage deal. The U.S. wants the Palestinian Authority to run Gaza, presumably after Israel levels the place.
What about what people in Gaza think? That's irrelevant, I guess.
Palestinian
Democracy.
Authority will say they will for a U.S. commitment to a two-state solution. Israel hits a Shifa hospital compound multiple times, housing internal refugees, as the Palestinian death toll tops at least 11,000. Biden warned by U.S. diplomats of growing fury amongst Arab world toward the United States. Not to mention that U.S. aid letter involving 1,000 State Department employees expressing their outrage. SAG-AFTRA National Board to meet as we speak over the tentative strike-ending deal. Vegas culinary workers and bartenders strike a deal with MGM. In time for the Formula One racing, Mike Johnson's continuing resolution plan has gone limp with just 7 days from the government shutdown. Nothing?
Oh,
right.
Yes.
Manchin
His
will
son
not-
is so proud. He's fully limp, just like God intended.
Manchin will
I got
not
to
run
it.
again in 2024. DOJ says Alabama cannot prosecute people who help abortion seekers leave the state. And congrats, folks. You have now lived through the 12 hottest months on record on the entire planet Earth. And a new Greenland study shows ominous signs for sea level rise. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Casual Friday. Emma Vigland. Well, actually,
I honestly wore my most collared-y shirt today.
I was going to say, I look over it, it occurs to me, like, I don't know what you're doing.
I put it on today, and I thought, I'm going to get some grief for this, but, you know, the
Well-
laundry's piled up, and I don't really have much of them.
I like when you have to dress up because all of your casual clothes are dirty.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
You will undoubtedly hear something from HR, but
I know.
I'll
I
leave
breached
that
my
to-
contract.
I'll leave that to the HR folks. Folks, just a note. In 2 hours and 38 minutes, I will be on the Labor Valley Report. They're doing I think it's a 32-hour stream to raise money for their strike funds. And it's a great show. If you're not familiar with what Jacob and Adam do over there. And I mean, it's a, did I say Labor Valley Report?
Valley Labor
Report.
I was
It
just
is
gonna
a,
let it slide.
Oh, thanks. It is a great report on what's happening in terms of labor
They're also on a conservative radio station at like 6 or something in the morning.
down in
That's amazing.
Alabama, and great resource for, we get people asking us a lot of times, like, I want to organize my shop, or I want to talk to other people. They're a great resource for you to check out if you are interested, but also just in broadly, if you're interested in labor issues. I will be there at 2:45 Eastern time for about an hour. So check it out. We will put the links in the podcast and YouTube descriptions. You don't hear much more about the sort of the controversy of the number of fatalities that is coming out of Gaza. We don't hear, well, you can't really trust these numbers anymore.
Hamas numbers, even though we trusted them all the way up to October 7th, but now it's Hamas numbers.
And
Hamas numbers.
And again, the Hamas administers Gaza, and the Ministry of Health are not fighters. I mean, this concept of like a military wing of an administration or a group, and a political wing or administrative one being distinct. I mean, this is not something that we've had trouble accepting in other contexts. But just so that we can put a fine note on Joe Biden saying, like, I don't know if we can trust these Hamas numbers on casualties, here is Barbara Leaf. She is the Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs at the House Foreign Affairs Committee, being asked a question by Representative Nathaniel Moran, Republican from Texas. And he asked, can we trust those numbers? And she says, well, sort of, but not necessarily in the way that we have been told to believe.
The gentleman from Texas. Ladies, I want to ask you about, first of all, the Gaza Ministry of Health, the information we're getting from them, and what really appears to be some reliance on them for information I'm not so sure is correct. I want to just go through a few things, because over a number of years, through several conflicts, numerous bloody skirmishes between Israel and Hamas, UN agencies, as you know, and others have cited the Gaza Health Ministry's death tolls in regular reports. The International Committee of the Red Cross and the Palestinian Red Crescent also use these numbers or rely on these numbers, as does the United Nations. Several news publications cite numbers from Hamas for their data, but frankly, I'm a little skeptical about the data that's coming out. Both President Biden and the National Security Council spokesman John Kirby have been publicly skeptical of the Gaza Health Ministry's numbers and called them, quote, unreliable due to its control by Hamas. And I agree with that. Tell me a little bit about the types of propaganda. I'll start with Assistant Secretary Leaf, that Hamas or other Iranian-backed proxies are spreading using either the Ministry of Health or other organizations located in Palestine.
So I would just say, Congressman, that Hamas is very adroit at using social media in particular to circulate its propaganda, to circulate disinformation, misinformation. On the question you cite about statistics, I would just say that in this period of conflict and conditions of war, it is very difficult for any of us to assess what the rate of casualties are. We think they're very high, frankly, and it could be that they're even higher than are being cited. We'll know only after the guns fall silent. So we take in sourcing from a variety of folks who are on the ground, and so I can't stipulate to one figure or another, but I think it's very possible that they're even higher than is being reported.
Okay. I mean, And first off, yes, Hamas is adroit at putting out social media. I got some news for you about Israel's adroitness in terms of social media as well. I think I just retweeted a tweet about the some Israel ministry trying to show that Palestinian casualties were fake by playing clips of I think a Lebanese music video or film to show, like, literally they were just showing behind the scenes of a film that existed. But put that aside for a moment. If there was even the slightest belief amongst U.S. officials that the death toll in Gaza was not 4,000 children and counting, or 11,000 people, period, civilians. If there was the slightest doubt about that figure being less, then we would have just heard it from her. But the only critique she could make about the numbers that that have been released by the health ministry in Gaza is that they may be, in fact, undercounting at this point, which, of course, all you need to do is look at the just the results of the bombardment there and think it's impossible for them to have been able to dig out bodies from that complete carnage.
It's quite clear if you have common sense, and you even can hear it from Israeli ministers who said, in Hebrew, it's very important to understand when the Israeli government, which is as adept, I would say, as, say, the Russian government in putting out disinformation on social media and doing it in a coordinated way, they have in Hebrew to a local Israeli paper, one said that they think it's closer to 20,000. And they said that about a few days ago, or nearly a week ago at this point, Human Rights Watch has confirmed those numbers coming out of the Palestinian Health Ministry at 11,000 at this point. And those are just the bodies that they can count. How many bodies are under rubble? We have no idea at this point. How many of those bodies are hostages that are under rubble, right? I mean, we talk about how the Netanyahu government rejected calls for a ceasefire, a temporary pause in the bombing so some hostages could come out. They're not showing any concern for the lives of the hostages either. And it just really goes back to these underlying racist assumptions about Palestinians. Why would the United States government trust these numbers before, but then after October 7th, in this heightened environment, say, well, we don't know if we can trust them now? I mean, is it because Hamas committed the terror attack? Sure, right? But if you can't trust Hamas's figures, right, or you can't trust the government's figures based on, I don't know, a base level of barbarity and civilian deaths, well, the Israeli government has committed those atrocities now multiple times over. So, like,
well, there's one reason why they do that. There's just one reason. It's because they want to diminish the pressure on Israel to cease fire, and they wanted to diminish the political pressure on the administration. There's no other. It's quite obvious. That's why when it actually, what we heard from Biden was for public consumption, and this is for consumption for people, like the tiny percentage of the American population that, digs into what's happening on C-SPAN 2 for a committee where there's 4 Congress people there, and they know they can say this. They need to deliver this stuff to Congress in a legit fashion, and they know there's very little chance of it actually making any difference, broadly speaking. But we'll talk to Jeet a little bit too about what's happening with at least Democrats hearing from their constituents in a way that is, I think, completely surprised them. And the Democratic Party is completely flat-footed on this account in terms of what to do with this. But we'll talk more to Jeet about that in a moment. But just for folks who you're having an argument with about the whether we trust the numbers coming out of Gaza, here's your clip. The U.S. government does, in fact, trust them. And if anything, they think it's an undercount.
It's absolutely an undercount. I know we're getting to Jeet in a sec, but just a reminder, 141 square mile area, more bombs dropped than we did in the entire first year in Afghanistan, a 250K square mile place.
I heard Zionists say, with all the bombing being dropped, don't you think the number should be higher with the destruction? And turns out, yeah, probably is.
All right. We'll be talking to Jeet Heer, national affairs correspondent for The Nation, in a moment. Jeet also, does he do a podcast as well? Yeah, he does a podcast, The Time of Monsters, on for The Nation magazine. Also, another podcast you should know about. I know you care about politics. If you like our show, I think you're going to like Future Hindsight. Very easy to feel hopeless and powerless, like we can't do anything to change the status quo. But what if you could be a strategic player in politics? On Future Hindsight, Mila Atmos shows you how much power you have and how to use it. Think about it this way. If each of us could do 2% more than we are doing now, it would transform our democracy. So tune in every Thursday to get engaged and stay engaged. This week, Mila speaks to Bernard Harcourt about a new blueprint for society based on cooperation. It's an idea as big as capitalism and communism, and it might just be the most exciting thing you'll come across all day. Find them at futurehindsight.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, word from one of our favorite sponsors, sunsetlakesebede.com. Sunsetlakesebede.com. Use the coupon code LEFTISBEST. You will get 20% off of anything and everything on their website. They have tinctures. They have tinctures in 3 or 4 different strengths. They have 3 different flavors of tinctures. They have tinctures including melatonin, which is the one that...
That's how I got to sleep last night.
Yes, I've been leaning hard on this stuff. I'm not going to lie, over the past couple of weeks. But they also have smokables. They have keef. They have pre-rolls. They have flour, a bunch of different types of flour that you can enjoy on its own or to create some type of entourage effect,
Whoa.
as it were. Also, they have Sebede fudge, Sebede infused coffee, which is my weekend brew. They have Sebede lotion. I usually have some on here because, my skin gets a little bit dry. There's nothing, honestly, I've never put anything else on my body besides this.
And it helps with your eczema too, right?
Well, I use the salve for the eczema, which has arnica, and they also have one that has lidocaine, I think. So, I mean, it's really meant for your muscles, but I use it for my my eczema. But sometimes I also use the tincture in my hair.
Whoa.
Yep. Check it out. They have a great product. They have great farming practices, integrated pest management. So that means that your Sebede has no pesticides in it. They use regenerative farming practices, which means that they treat the soil and the land with respect and keep it alive and thriving. They also have amazing business practices and political instincts. They have donated thousands of dollars to things like strike funds, to food pantries, to carceral reform, to refugee resettlement. They've given a bunch to give directly. They've given relief for the floods in Vermont. They're located up near Burlington. Just a great company, a great product. Check it out. 20% off. Go there now. Get 20% off. Use the code LEFTISBEST. You will not be disappointed. Oh, and you can also, the great thing about them too is that their product has integrity. You can literally look at the third-party analysis of it and know exactly what you're dealing with. All right, we're going to do a quick break. When we come back, Jeet Heer, national affairs correspondent for The Nation. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report with Emma Vigeland. Also, I want to welcome to the show, really excited to welcome to the show, Jeet Heer, national affairs correspondent for The Nation, host of the weekly Nation podcast, The Time of Monsters, and the monthly column, Morbid Symptoms, indeed. Jeet Heer, thanks so much for joining us.
It's good to be on the show.
Jeet, this is, I was just saying beforehand, we're basically going to go over the last three pieces that you've written, more or less.
That makes it easy for me.
And it really basically covers what we've been talking about to a large extent. And you write, your most recent piece was about Biden tearing his coalition apart, and you compare what's happening with Biden and contrast, I guess, with FDR and LBJ, and sort of like place this moment. Just walk us through that. It basically centers around the idea of guns and butter.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, there's a kind of classic question in economics: can you have both guns and butter? And it's sort of, like many questions, depends on when. And I think FDR, the sort of most important American president of the last century, was able to kind of have guns and butter, but under the very special circumstances that you first had the Great Depression, which the nation flat on the back, and then World War II, and you had to basically defeat Nazism, which is very important to do. And within that context of the nation really needing a lot of stimulus, was able to do sort of like a guns and butter program, Social Security, but also making America into a superpower. Now the thing is, after that, it becomes a dilemma, because once you're at a healthier economy, you kind of have to choose. There's only so much resources to go around, and I think it's an unfortunate and tragic choice that after Roosevelt, the sort of presidents that came in, starting with Truman, but really coming to a peak with Lyndon Johnson, basically thought that they could square the circle by something that scholars call military Keynesianism. So this is basically the idea that you can get the sort of Keynesian stimulus by just spending a lot of money on the military, and that's gonna so you can get both, right? Truman did it with the big sort of arms buildup for the Korean War, and Lyndon Johnson tried to do the same thing. The problem is, once you're at full economy, if you do that, you're going to get inflation, and you're going to get all sorts of destabilizations in the system. And that's kind of what happened with Lyndon Johnson. I mean, in addition to all the moral atrocity of the Vietnam War, there's simply the fact that, he really created a lot of budgetary and inflation problems that really came back to bite the Democrats in the ass, and created the precondition for all the austerity of the 1970s. And Biden, his mind is really in 1963. I don't think his mind has changed since then, and he's trying to replicate what Lyndon Johnson is doing.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm a little skeptical from the economic perspective that we can't have guns and butter now because I mean, because the I mean, just our monetary system works differently than in those two occasions. But to me, the problem is from a political standpoint in terms of the coalition that Biden needs to defeat Trump and the Democrats really need to defeat the Republicans. This idea of, what's going on in Israel and that's sort of like maybe the open-endedness. I think there's a lot more play in terms of the Ukraine issue. And I'm speaking only from a political standpoint. Let's, for a moment, put aside these other issues. But within the context of the coalition, it feels like this is much more problematic in terms of like the political notions than certainly for FDR and arguably for LBJ.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, I think LBJ, when he was starting out in 64, 65, there wasn't a big anti-war movement, but he certainly helped create it, right? And he certainly and that led to like real political dilemma for people like Martin Luther King Jr., where, obviously he was very supportive of the Great Society and the Civil Rights Act, but then he found himself he had to break with Lyndon Johnson and say the Vietnam War is too much. That's a hard thing to do, to break with a president that has given you stuff that you want. And Biden has recreated that dilemma. Biden is no Lyndon Johnson or Franklin Roosevelt, but actually in terms of what he's given us, it's more than any Democrat since Lyndon Johnson, right? He has actually really made some good interventions in the economy, especially on climate. But are people gonna buy the bargain that he's selling them? Which is if you want my economic policies, you have to also buy blowing up hospitals in Gaza. Well, I don't know how many people are going to do that. Martin Luther King Jr. did not accept the idea that if he wanted the Civil Rights Act, he had to accept firebombing Hanoi. At some point, people within your coalition, people who are don't want unjust wars, are going to break with you. So in that sense, Biden has recreated the problem.
Well, the coalition here is, I think, key, right? Because I think before October 7th and before Israel's, genocidal response, as scholars are determining it here, if they are not stopped, there was, I would say, a significant path forward with a fairly robust coalition where you could have taken away a lot from these recent elections, where you could ride abortion to a victory, even if the person at the top of the ticket people are largely ambivalent about. You would be able to have a coalition of young people motivated to vote against Trump via negative partisanship, more like 2020, as opposed to staying home and depressing that kind of turnout, getting Democratic partisans, traditional voters, plus young people who don't want to see Trump in office. So more of a replication of 2020 with high turnout. Biden desperately needs high turnout, right? And that is a major problem if you're going to depress some percentage of the population who doesn't want to sign on to what many young people honestly feel is a genocide. And you can say, that's not rational. Trump is worse. I agree, Trump is worse. But that's not going to be persuasive in getting many people to vote, right? Because we know this time and time again, you can't browbeat people into voting in the way that they should. It's all about, how people respond emotionally to these things.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And people, it's not just a matter of emotion. I think people are right to kind of draw a line.
Sure.
I mean, as I said, I go back to the King dilemma. Lyndon Johnson gave the American left, almost everything they could have wanted. But if you're destroying whole villages in Vietnam, how can you sign on for that? How can you think of yourself as a moral person if you make that devil's bargain? And people are very upset at this, and for good reasons. it's an interesting question. Like if this war hadn't broken up, I do think you're right that the coalition could have kept together. I still have questions about the guns and butters things because I actually think that you have to have some priority in government spending. I think what Biden and Jake Sullivan and Blinken are thinking is they can recreate the Cold War. They can recreate the idea that we have to fight China, so we're going to get Republicans on board to finance a lot of infrastructure spending, a lot of scientific research, and we'll get rid of the gridlock. I don't think that would work. I don't think Republicans are on board for that. We certainly already saw that with Ukraine spending. And, I actually don't think if you think about what the priorities we actually need to spend money on, building solar panels. We need to build a Green New Deal. And you don't get a Green New Deal by funding the Pentagon to $1 trillion. That's just not the path forward.
What do you think? I mean, there are cables now coming in from ambassadors in the Middle East, U.S. ambassadors that are being leaked, saying that this is, they're appalled and sort of shocked at what Biden's doing. There are 1,000 State Department workers essentially who are, releasing letters type of situation. And there was this piece in the Huffington Post today about congressional members of Congress, Democratic members of Congress, sort of completely caught off guard about the politics here. I just want to read this one graph from it. Another staffer said it did not occur to her superiors that some constituents would have personal ties to Gaza, which she realized when a caller said the bombardment had just killed most of his friend's family. The statement we're authorized to use doesn't contain any sympathy, the staffer said. It isn't part of any statement to say, I'm sorry that happened to you. She went off script to tell the caller she was sorry. An astounding number of callers say they are committed to never voting for their member again unless they support a ceasefire, several staffers said. Some constituents even promised to go further and mobilize friends and neighbors to vote against them. Some members equally fervent in believing this will blow over. It really feels, I mean, just, again, strictly as a political matter, that the president and Democratic leaders in the Senate, Bernie Sanders, and members of Congress really had maybe no sense of how committed Netanyahu was to staying in office, which means ongoing killing until people forget that he should, be going to jail, and that there would be this kind of reaction from the American public.
Yeah, no, I think one way to see this, the prism to use, is gerontocracy. That the sort of the president, the Senate, and the Congress are much older than the American people, and that's more true of the Democrats than of the Republicans. And so I think that a lot of these people, their mental universe is 1967 or 1973, when there was kind of very strong, full throttled American support. And among older people, there is more of that. But among younger people, if you're under 30 or under 40, the only Israel you've ever known is Netanyahu and Sharon, right?
Yeah.
The only Israel you've ever known is the one that's bombing Gaza. And certainly younger people especially have a lot more friends that are multicultural, coming from different backgrounds, and just have are more in line with the rest of the world, really. So you have a sort of democratic leadership that was totally caught off guard by the fact that a large part of their base, their constituency, is not on board of this. There's overwhelming support among Democratic voters for a ceasefire, and more broadly for an even-handed approach, for the United States being even-handed. I honestly think there's possible explanations of donor class and stuff like that, but I honestly think the explanation is that Biden and unfortunately Bernie Sanders are living in a mental universe that is far in the past.
Yes, and you also see that in the coalition of those who are supporting a ceasefire in the House. Not one white member is supporting a ceasefire. It is all progressive POCs who are behind a ceasefire at this point. And like, is there any kind of pause from the gerontocracy to understand, like, are we racist? Are we racist? Like, are we discounting the views of black and brown people in this country who feel an intrinsic kind of solidarity with Palestine and what they've experienced? And is it because they're just all anti-Semitic all of a sudden? Or is it because they see something in the Palestinian people that is reflected in their own domestic experiences or the experiences of their ancestors or their family?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. There is a very sharp kind of racial divide, which ties in with the generational divide. With people of color being generally younger, and yeah, I just don't think the lived experience of like the actual voters that the Democrats need is apparent to like most members of Congress, except. And then this might bring us to the next point through their staff. Like they do have staff that is much younger. And even in the State Department, there are like younger people. And so I think you're seeing an interesting sort of mutiny within the sort of lanyard class. Like the people who are like within the establishment at the bottom rungs of the ladder are kind of like, they're really not on board with this.
Yeah, it's interesting. And of course, from the perspective of like the upcoming 2024 election, aside from some third or fourth or fifth party folks who are, they don't have a chance of winning. It's not like there's a different position staked out by Donald Trump here. I mean, it really is sort of hard to assess. And you did also write a piece about this isn't your father's Republican Party, it's your grandfather's Republican Party in terms of their perspective on so-called isolationism and war. But this, in addition to what we've been hearing about their Latin American sort of, aspirations during some of these debates, the Israel sort of like puts to lie the idea that this is the anti-war party that the Republicans have sort of mutated into. Just talk a little bit about that, the similarities and to where the Republicans were maybe, 70, 80, 90, 100 years ago.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, there is this argument. I mean, the reason to address this is that there are people, your friend and mine, Glenn Greenwald, among them, who say, the Republicans are the really anti-war party. They're the ones, who are questioning Ukraine. Like as a way of sort of, getting people to give the Republicans a sort of second thought. But, if you look at where the Republicans currently stand, right? Yes, they're much more supportive of like cutting off funding for Ukraine. But like on Gaza, they're the same or worse. I think there's a representative in Florida, who's when somebody raised the question, how many Palestinians are we going to kill? Said, like all of them, right?
Yes, I saw that clip actually.
She said we played it yesterday. She's the state either senator or representative from where Matt Gaetz actually represents, and the state representative or Senator Nixon is one of the more progressive ones, represents Jacksonville. It was outrageous. And only two other members signed on to her ceasefire resolution in Florida, which just goes to show how, completely hollowed out the Democratic Party is in Florida.
Yeah, no, and so there's that, but if you looked at the debates, I wouldn't encourage anyone to look at the debates, but like all of the Republican candidates were like very, their whole thing in Gaza was finish the job. Which, if you think about what's happening, like finish the job,
right.
Means mass death.
A final solution.
I think that's what we're basically saying. Yeah, this is the final solution for the Palestinian people. I mean,
No. So there's that, And also the Republican position, I mean, on like Mexico, there's a an emerging consensus that not only you have to build a wall, you have to invade Mexico to take care of the cartels. And on China, certainly a lot of hawkishness. And if you circle back to Ukraine, a lot of the arguments for like not funding Ukraine are basically like, well, we have to have resources to fight China and Mexico, right? And we want to like split Russia and China apart. So when we do go to war with China, that is we have all our ducks in a row. Now, to me, that's not isolationism. That's not anti-war. It's like you don't want to fight a war in Europe, but you want to fight wars everywhere else. As it happens, what's interesting is that this is like exactly parallel with the policies of the 1930s and 40s that people falsely call isolationism. People will be familiar with Charles Lindbergh, the America First movement, Senator Robert Taft. And if you actually study what these people wanted, like they, first of all, were said like, we don't want to be involved with Europe. Like, let's make Mr. Hitler overlord of Europe. If that's what's going to happen, so be it. But we don't want to be involved with Europe because our destiny is in the Western Hemisphere and in Asia. We want to be strong enough to dominate the Western Hemisphere and to expand into Asia. And so my understanding of all this is basically the foreign policy of settler colonialism, right? You don't want to fight other white people. They already have civilizations, and you want to trade with them and make deals with them. You want to make deals with Hitler, and you want to make deals with Putin, right? They see Putin as part of this, the white nations. The destiny of America is to dominate the non-white peoples. It's to dominate resources extraction. Trump, wanted to have coups in Venezuela and elsewhere so he can take the oil, right? It's the take the oil philosophy, which is not an anti-war philosophy, right? and it is a philosophy of seeing America as a white nation with a destiny to rule over the non-white world and to make peace with whoever is the white kingmakers of Europe, whether it's Hitler or Putin.
It's sort of to extend what you were writing about in your first piece. This is not a guns or butter situation. It's a guns or guns sort of doctrine for the Republican Party in this instance. And it is was it
Well,
earlier
it has
this
an
week?
interesting. It's actually more coherent than the Democrats, right? Like if you say guns and guns, then you have everyone's on board in the Republican Party. They love guns, right? They
Right.
love
It's
guns,
just a question of where do we point them? Which direction are we firing them off in?
So as the Republicans are united on a guns and guns program, Biden is dividing his own party on guns and butter. So, which means that Biden to pursue this like foreign policy, which like is basically geared towards letting Benjamin Netanyahu do what he wants, like in Gaza, is willing to like destroy his own coalition, get Trump reelected, and possibly end American democracy.
And it completely undercuts the gains that were made in the withdrawal of Afghanistan and the recognition that our multi-decade policy in the Middle East was a massive failure. I would also say, like, positioning the United States in support of Ukraine is probably good for, like, the international community's kind of recognition as the U.S. as a partner in certain situations, because obviously the invasion of Ukraine was so unjust by Russia. But now we're just lighting that on fire, and you hear that these Arab nations are essentially telling the diplomatic partners in the United States, Sam mentioned this earlier, the trust is completely broken. I mean, this is ripping open a gaping wound in the Middle East as it relates to U.S. policy that, I don't even know how we're going to be able to close it if Blinken and Biden continue to go down this path.
Yeah, no, that's such a crucial point, and it extends beyond the Middle East. Like, there's a good report on this in the Financial Times a few weeks ago. But basically, in the global South, all the diplomats there, like in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, they're going to the Americans and saying, "You want us to support Ukraine because of the international liberal order and the idea that you shouldn't invade other countries and the idea of human rights." And look at what you're supporting in Gaza. You're totally full of, you know what you're full of, right? You're totally full of crap. It's totally hypocritical. Your basic policy is, for the Russians, we want the rule of law. For Israel, anything goes. And so they've totally destroyed like any coherent foreign policy. Like if Biden has a foreign policy that goes beyond just maintaining the empire, it is like, like we're going to restore the international respect for the United States that was lost under Trump.
Yes.
And we're going to restore the idea of an international liberal order where there are rules, where human rights is respected, where democracy is promoted. And like you can't do that and support what you're supporting in Gaza. Like it's a totally you've totally destroyed your own policy.
Do you think that they in the White House are just like, well, we broke it. We broke it already at this point. So, rather than, I don't know, the only example I could use is playing blackjack. You got to decide when you sit down at the table, when I have a 3 and the dealer has a 2, I'm either going to hit every time or I'm not going to hit every time, because otherwise you're not even getting the odds. If you play it like you switch midstream. Do you think that that's like, are they on, is this like a path dependency 4 weeks into this when Gaza has been leveled at this point? Or do you think it's still like there's an opportunity for them to reverse course? Not that it would change the destruction that has already happened, but I guess maybe might mitigate future destruction?
Well, I think the thinking of this is that it might blow over, right? Like I think there's some suggestion that they think like, well, we have to let Israel do this now because they're mad and there's a lot of rage. They have to get this out of their system, and then we'll pull back, and then we'll push for a 2-state solution or some sort of like Palestinian Authority control of Gaza. And then people will forget, right? Like that the election's a year from now. We know people are angry, but this will also blow over. Like and there's a lot of comments from Blinken that kind of suggest that he's already kind of saying like, well, Israel has killed too many Palestinians, right? Like, well, it suggests that like there's a proper number of Palestinians
right,
that you can kill. You hit your quota, buddy. We're going to give you 6,000 and you hit 10,000, whatever. But I do think that is the philosophy, that they can ride this out. And I'm not sure that they can ride this out. Like, I'm not sure that people are going to so easily forget this. And also, I have to say, there's no coherent strategy. Like, what the hell is going to happen? Like, Israel's goal is supposedly to destroy Hamas. And then what happens? Like, who are you going to put in charge of Gaza?
Doesn't the Biden administration? I mean, I can understand how they think this could blow over because we killed far more in Iraq, and by the time you get to like 2000, I don't even think 2006 was about the Iraq War as much as it was about Foley. The Foley cover up and the taking over Congress and, his predatory behavior, Mark Foley on the pages or whatever it was. But like you could be walking around in 2005 and there was no, we're actively killing people and it wasn't, it was almost like no longer a part of our politics. But don't they aren't they savvy enough to realize like we've talked to a couple of reporters from Israel, and if people spend 10 minutes reading anything from Israel, like Netanyahu is not going to let this, he's going to keep this alive as long as he possibly can.
Yep.
Because it's the only way he's going to keep out of jail. Like, it's not like we don't have domestically a paradigm for what's going on with Netanyahu.
Oh, the coverage in Israel is infinitely better
But I'm
about
saying,
the
like,
position. But
all
I
you
mean,
gotta do
it's
is look
much clearer
downtown
to
New
them.
York and see what
Yes.
Donald Trump's doing. He wants to stay out of jail too. And like, how do they not realize it's not in Netanyahu's interest to let this blow over?
Yeah, I have no idea what they're thinking, except I would also add that Netanyahu basically campaigned for like Trump in 2020 and has done everything to show that he's aligned with the Republican Party when they're in power, and then he'll try to buddy up to the Democrats. But it is kind of amazing that the United States, Biden has putting the entire interest of the United States, not just in the Middle East, but in the world, because this affects the world. Like, believe me, people in Asia, in Africa, and Latin America are watching this. He's put the entire interest of the United States in the world, staking it on this like crooked, small-time politician who has a cabinet full of religious fanatics who are like, like slavering after the apocalypse. It's just an amazing decision. I don't know. I mean, I do think the sort of ride it out theory is maybe the sort of the best one, and maybe they also think, like if they let Netanyahu blow off the steam, then they can pressure him later. Like there's usually some sort of calculus that like they're buying some favors from Israel. But I don't know. I don't think that makes a lot of sense to me. But
all right. Well, I just want to pivot to the last piece, and I know you've got only just a couple of minutes here.
Yeah, sure.
But you said that you mentioned with the Republican Party that it was basically their militarism is more settler colonial in its orientation, I guess. And we had somebody on at the beginning. Was it the beginning of the week where we were talking about the doctrine of discovery? And which really gave rise to settler colonialism, and that doctrine of discovery came from Pope in in the 1400s, and now we really have a Speaker of the House who seems to really sort of circle the square, I guess, of the Republican Party, or circle the circle, maybe, of the Republican Party. This guy, short of Mike Pence, is the highest elected theocrat I think that we've ever had in this country.
Yeah, no. And it's so interesting because it really shows you how much good manners can get you in life. Because, like the Republican Party has a lot of people that are like, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Is I think the phrase the kids use. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene.
They used when we were kids.
Yes, I know.
I don't know if the kids use that now.
or Boebert or Getz, like Jim Jordan, like really like crackpot people. Whereas Mike Johnson comes across as very quiet, very staid, and then you look into his like actual political philosophy, and he's absolutely coming out of the sort of theocratic wing of the Republican Party. There's a kind of, there's been a long-standing movement going back decades of, various theological strands, but they're all basically predicated on the idea that America is a Christian country and that Christians have an obligation to like take over the institutions and Christianize them. The comparable, I think, to certain Islamic movements, who want to Islamicize the state, or comparable actually to the religious right in India and in Israel, right? Like basically these sort of theocratic tendencies, and that is like you just go back through his record, and that's exactly what he stands for, and with all sorts of weird permutations where. There's this thing about how he and his son monitor each other's porn intake, which I love my father, but I would never do that myself. I think there's certain things that you want to keep to yourself. But in any case,
yeah, I mean it's fascinating, and the other sort of like development along those lines is, we saw Rick Santorum say this the other night about democracy. You read stuff that's coming out of like the Claremont Institute. They are really geared up, and Mike Johnson himself was a key instrument in the January 6th like planning and execution and whatnot, and the idea of
he
him,
wanted to legally kind of ratify it. He was on the front line. Sorry, go on.
And the point being is if he's the Speaker of the House, and everybody, all these Claremont Institute people and the Rick Santorums, who's also sort of a right wing theocrat, from back in the day, Trump becomes their Caesar. I mean, they're actively saying this type of thing.
No. They are actually saying, yeah, what we need is a red Caesar, I guess a red state Caesar. And it is, I mean, it's interesting on the right, there's a lot of projection going on because they had actually accused Barack Obama of being like the American Caesar and like trying to take over the state. But now they're like, well, actually, we need our own Caesar. And it's interesting, like they even use a metaphor. Like they often, like on January 6th, they use this metaphor, are we going to cross the Rubicon? Where I come from, like crossing the Rubicon is usually seen as a bad thing, right? Like, that was a moment where Caesar came back into Rome and took power. But they're thinking of this as like, oh, well, this is what we want, let's cross that Rubicon. Yeah, no, it's a very dire thing. It is a sort of merger. I mean, I think there's longstanding anti-democratic tendencies in America that are more secular. That are among people on the right who have never liked democracy, have never liked, especially multiracial democracy and sharing the country with Black people. But now it's combined with this sort of theocratic argument, and I think one problem with that is like you can't actually have a political argument with someone like that, right? You can't have the give and take of politics, like where you try to reach some sort of settlement. Like they want what they want, and they'll do what they want to get it.
Jeet Heer, national affairs correspondent for The Nation, also a host of the weekly Nation podcast, The Time of Monsters. We'll put a link to all that in our podcast and YouTube description today. Thanks so much for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
Oh, it was great. It was great talking to you guys.
Thanks so much.
All right, folks. We're going to take a quick break, head into the fun half. We watch Jeet try and figure out how to hang up from.
Okay, bye, guys.
So long. And just a reminder, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you will not only help this show survive and thrive, but you'll also get the free show free of commercials. Although, our reminder, we will put the links in the podcast and YouTube descriptions so you get those discounts. Also, you can IM the show, where we know that there's a little bit of problems lately with the app, listening to the audio. We are working on that. But you can always take your member link and put it into most of your podcast apps that you have. And retrieve the member show that way to listen to. But anyways, jointhemajorityreport.com, jointhemajorityreport.com. Also, justcoffee.coop, Fairtrade Coffee, and featuring the Majority Report blend.
Ooh.
Yes, impress your friends. It's a great way. It's a great way at Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, to turn your friends onto your family onto the show because, hey, check out this great tasting coffee. Everybody has that after Thanksgiving. I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people. Oh, the coffee tastes great. Where'd this come from? It's from Just Coffee. They're a co-op, but this is the Majority Report blend. Oh, I'll listen to that show. What? And then they never talk to you again because they're so pissed off because they're right-wingers.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't know. Perhaps the Majority Report blend has some leftist hypnosis powers. And many people are saying.
Yeah, it's possible.
Okay.
Yada, yada, yada says, the app issues, I deleted it and re-downloaded it and worked fine again for me. Just as a heads up to other members having issues. Thank you. Emma!
Yes.
Did a bonus show yesterday for the ESPN.
Oh, I did. And, I'm starting to gain a little bit of ground on Bradley here. So I would like people to go and watch our show, OT, and comment what the punishment should be for either of us who loses this season along competition. If you recall, I had to eat cheese on camera. It didn't go that well. I almost yacked on camera. So what should Bradley or myself, if I'm, completely fall behind, have to do at the end of the season? We're going to go all the way to the Super Bowl. YouTube.com/ESPN show.
Also, before we get to Left Reckoning, just a reminder, I'm going to be on the Valley Labor Report in almost exactly an hour and 45 minutes. You can check me out there. I'll be there for an hour. These guys are doing a 32-hour stream to support some strike funds. Podcast. The link is in the descriptions Matt, Left Reckoning.
Yeah, actually, David Griscom will be on that stream as well. We were supposed to be a little bit earlier and got bumped, so it's just going to be David but I think 6 Eastern tonight on that stream as well. And for patreon.com/Left Reckoning listeners, David and I are going to be finishing up our reading of the Communist Manifesto, a third part of that reading, patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
Folks, see you in the Fern half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the Fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman!
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder, what a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ
Yeah, or a couple of them, just put them in rotation.
DJ Denner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. See white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males.
Psych. Fuck them. Oh.
Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. All lives matter.
Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on! Fuck 'em. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday! Happy birthday to me, Jew boy!
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on! Come on! Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We are back. Emma Vigeland, Sam Seder, Majority Report, Fun Half. Do we have that Tim Pool? Is that a tweet that you were talking about?
Oh yeah, it was just a tweet where he said raise the voting.
Let's pop it up. Let's pop it up. We'll
yeah.
start that, and then because I want to get to this Fein stuff, but because it's interesting theory that Tim Pool is promulgating here.
No more voting for Du Bois, only voting for Demench.
Oh, look at that! And Matthew Film Guy was one of the first guys in to comment on it. Or is that just showing up because you follow him? I don't know. How does that work? Why isn't there all the blue checks before that? But here's Tim Pool. Raise the voting age to 30. And you know what's amazing about like some of these guys, like the views that they get are massive. Like Jill Stein, she posted her that she's running, and she got like 3 million views off an account that has the same size as mine. That's a lot of.
Little odd.
Did
That's
she
a lot.
pay for a check?
Maybe. I don't. Yeah, probably. That's probably what it is. But raise the voting age to 30. Now let's speculate why he would want to do that.
I think we know why.
Why?
It's all the protests that are pro-terror. That's what I guarantee it's about that.
But but it's not just like because presumably if you went to the protest and you were 35, you could still vote.
In his mind and in the minds of his audience, they're all freshmen in college.
He doesn't think there's anybody above the age of 30?
I think that's generally the impression all these people like to create.
Because I think what he's trying to say is these people are dumb and they don't have enough life experience and knowledge
Yeah.
and responsibility.
And they can learn that by going to Tim Pool's compound.
Skate park.
At age 30.
Hanging out and living on the compound. That's how you get the knowledge as a young person. If you're 18, 19, 20, you need some life experience. You go live on Tim's compound. That's how you know how to vote.
Well, you pick up savviness.
Maybe Jim Jordan will be
by
around
sitting
for an
around.
interview.
Yeah.
You pick up savviness by sitting around with the boys and having some sush.
Yeah, he expanded on this point. I just sent more of what Tim had to say.
Yeah, I want to see, because my guess is he thinks that people under the age of 30 do not have essentially the savvy. I don't know if it would be his word, but I would bet it has to do with like intelligence and common sense, right? Do we have it?
I just sent it in our chat.
Yeah, pop it up, because I want to see, because I have I think he might be on to something here. Mm-hmm. If it really is, let's see. The stupidest thing is that you have to be 35 to run for president, but you can be 18 to vote for president. How does that even make sense? Either raise the voting. Oh, wait. No, sorry.
Thing I've ever seen.
This is one of the dumbest comments I've ever seen in my life. He's saying that the level of responsibility and experience that you have to be president, to be arguably one of the most powerful people, not arguably, one of the most powerful, if not arguably the most powerful person on the planet, with the ability to, blow stuff up in a way that
command an army,
we can't even conceive, is the same as being one of 240 million people, 220 million people who will vote on who should be that person. He's saying it's the same level of responsibility. Every comment I had about what Tim Pool had written is out the window, because I couldn't even conceive, and I got to be fair, I don't hold Tim in the highest regard. Mm-hmm. And even I, with my incredibly low opinion of him, could not come up with that stupid of a reasoning. Pop that back up there. This is honestly the stupidest thing. Is you have to be 35 to run for president, but you can be 18 to vote for president.
You know what we should do? We should essentially have, because 240 million people, or however many people of those are adults who have the opportunity to vote. We should hold national elections to determine if that person individually has the right to vote. We can just do it one by one, since apparently the responsibility of the average voter is the same as the responsibility of the executive of the United States, the president. We should have individual elections on every single person's ability to vote.
Do you think he just does? He just posts that to get he just to get to juice his payments out of Twitter, because it'll get more interaction. Yeah. But he's not in any way embarrassed or thinks. What's fascinating is that he doesn't think this is going to impact his audience perspective of him whatsoever.
No, I mean, it's honestly genius, because he's attracting the dumbest morons who would think something like that is deep, and that's who you want to be milking for content.
Do you think that he realizes that, or do you think that he thinks this is a profound idea?
I think this is just what he's always been doing, and it's worked for him, and so that's how he just feels like the universe works.
And he can't imagine anything else, probably because of limited
and also
intellect.
Because since it's seemingly a response in some way to the reaction to Israel's mass indiscriminate bombing of civilians in Gaza, he's just coming to this quite recently, because when I spoke to him in June, he said he didn't know enough to comment on the Israel-Palestine conflict or on Israel generally. The top recipient of our military aid, as he said, he was to the left on me on foreign policy and on war.
Says woman who's really not old enough to vote yet.
I am not, honestly.
Isn't it crazy?
Now, one more year.
Isn't it crazy that like kids can ride in cars, but like you have to be 18 to drive it? Like,
Oh, that's nuts.
It is sort of nuts.
Either
16
lower
to
the
drive.
driving
16
age
to
or
drive.
raise the passenger.
It really
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
makes you think what they're why they're trying to control us.
Yeah. Pretty messed up. All right, let's go to Illinois. This is yesterday. UAW President Sean Fain. He is out in front of, or he's in an event, I should say, in Belvidere, Illinois. This is the site in which Stellantis shut down a plant in, I think it was February of this year. And it will be reopened under the terms of the contract that the UAW negotiated with Stellantis. And I believe it's going to become a one that is going to be working on EVs. And so this is a twofer, both in terms of like, obviously huge gain for the community and the workers there, but also an inroad into the future of automaking.
And making sure workers are at the center, or union workers are at the center of that.
Indeed. Here is Sean Fay.
When I came into office just 7 months ago, nobody thought we could accomplish what we've accomplished. Reopen Belvedere? Forget it. Win a just transition to EV battery work? It's impossible. We were literally told it was illegal. And here we stand. This one was personal. Coming from Stellantis, from Chrysler, all the things we've been through. In 2008, 2009, in the recession, I was a negotiator during that bankruptcy with your president, Matt Franson. And this issue here is personal for a lot of us because we go back to that and we know what the sacrifices our members made. And we've came forward from that, and Matt and I know Brandon, everybody involved in this, Rich Boyer, we've come full circle. We went further. We not only saved Belvedere, bringing back assembly jobs, we went even further. We secured over 1,000 battery jobs for Belvedere with a minimum floor, where the wage will be over $30 an hour by 2028, which gives us the opportunity to bargain for that in 2028. We brought parts depot jobs back to Belvedere. We improved those too, raising the wages with the raises we're going to recognize with Mopar over the course of this. The lowest paid Mopar worker right now would recognize a 250% increase over the life of this contract. We also made sure that these jobs can't disappear at the whim of the company because we won the right to strike over plant closings and product and investments. That means if they come at us again, we'll bring the full force of the UAW to protect those jobs, to protect our families, and to protect our communities just like we did right here in Belvedere. Throughout this campaign, we talked a lot about saving the American dream. It's not just a slogan. For 40 years, our country's been going backwards. The working class keeps getting left behind, while the billionaires strip our communities for parts. And there's only one thing that can stop that. It's us. It's the working class, united in a common cause.
One of the things too that, he's talking about future negotiations and whatnot. One of the things that comes out of this amongst the many big benefits is how empowered workers are going to feel in the next negotiation.
Oh, yeah.
And if I am, management, I know this going into those negotiations, that the idea of, breaking the union or breaking the will to be on strike, any reasonable person is going to realize that it's 50% harder than it was 6 months ago, at least because they're going to start. And the union members are going to have much more belief in their ability to wring concessions out of management, and that is, a big part of the game with these strikes. That's what they're doing. I mean, the management's constantly trying to demoralize the strikers into thinking that they're going to end up losing the strike. And every time workers win, it emboldens workers to win more.
And workers at non-union shops, right? Auto workers at places like Toyota, Tesla, Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, Toyota's like, by the way, we're giving you all a raise.
Yeah, they are going to be in for a reckoning. I mean, I believe that there's already an organizing committee at the Fremont, California plant for Tesla. That's, I think one of their biggest ones also was the subject of that racial discrimination lawsuit there. But that's in 2028 or somewhere around there. The fight is going to continue, and they're going to see this massive success and say, I want that for myself as well, as they should. It's an exciting time. That's my president.
Let's turn to some of the other big news, I guess, of the day. That being Joe Manchin announcing that, and I guess he did this yesterday, or no, he did this yesterday. He posted this to Twitter right after the show, probably so that to escape comment from the Majority Report.
Yeah.
Here is Joe Manchin. I mean, imagine. Well, here, play this clip, and then I will. This is Joe Manchin's video posted to Twitter.
He won't run again because his poll numbers are so bad in West Virginia.
Here we go.
I've never cared about where good ideas came from, and I never blame one side for creating a problem, nor believed that only one side could fix them. When America is at her best, we get things done by putting country before party, working across the aisle, and finding common ground. Many times this approach has landed me in hot water, but the fight to unite has been well worth it. Today, West Virginia is attracting more investment, opportunity, and jobs than it has in decades. Here at home and across the country, we are building more roads, bridges, manufacturing plants, and energy infrastructure than almost any time in America's history. After months of deliberation and long conversation with my family, I believe in my heart of hearts that I have accomplished what I set out to do for West Virginia. I've made one of the toughest decisions of my life and decided that I will not be running for re-election to the United States Senate. But what I will be doing is traveling the country and speaking out to see if there is an interest in creating a movement to mobilize the middle and bring Americans together. To the West Virginians who have put their trust in me and fought.
Okay. Imagine being responsible for plunging tens of millions of children into poverty after they had been lifted out of poverty for a year and feeling like, I've done my job here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
he has done his job. That was his job, to kill those kinds of things.
Somebody in Vermont Ben wrote on the IM, I've never cared. Pause it right there. That's all you really needed from that statement. Now, let's assess two things about Joe Manchin, his retirement. One, the implications for Democrats' control of the Senate. Two, the possibility that he may run under the no labels. That's what he's talking about. He doesn't. If he's traveling the country to listen to people, see if there's cries from the center. First off, I would love to see him do this so that we can laugh at how few people show up at his campaign events outside of anywhere, really, unless it's just like he's talking to the Chamber of Commerce or something. But I I think he was going to lose this election.
Yeah.
And like you say, the polling numbers were horrible for him.
And he has a very good opponent in Jim Justice, the governor of West Virginia,
who formerly Democrat and then turned Republican, coming from a governorship. Do they term limit and go? Because, I guess he did what Manchin did, which is like, I have sucked as much resources and corruption and graft out of the West Virginia government. I've sucked as much as term limits will allow, and therefore I'm going to move into senatorship and see what I can, get some rounding errors on that. But the good news is the Senate Reelect Committee, all of the Democratic establishment who would have spent money on Joe Manchin, they would have had to, because even if it looked like he was going to lose, if he won and they didn't spend any money, it would be a disaster for them. So the idea that now you're not going to have that money spent on Joe Manchin is good. I mean, all things considered, you might want him in there, obviously, for that vote for.
But that makes me curious, honestly, what the conversations were like with Schumer behind the scenes. If Schumer was, sufficiently pissed, I think that I remember vaguely rumblings about them saying, we don't know if we're going to help you because of how aggressively he sunk things like Build Back Better. Like, maybe he had a sense that the Democratic Senate committee was going to be kind of like, we're going to put our money elsewhere.
I got to imagine they would have put some, maybe not as much as Manchin would have wanted, but I think also what's really clear is he's not going to win in West Virginia. And it certainly makes messaging easier. But what it means is if Joe Biden is the next president, or a Democrat is the next president, whoever it is, then obviously you have the vice presidency, you can break a tie. It now would basically mean that every Democrat running for office, Tester, Sherrod Brown, there's a lot others who are sort of like on the cusp too, supposedly, they must win. All the incumbent Democrats must win. The only pickup potential is either in Florida against Rick Scott, who has won, I think, all of his elections only by like less than 1%. And that's with, horrible candidates and a horrible Democratic Party in Florida. Still, I think it's a very much of an uphill battle. Or against Ted Cruz. Those are really, as far as I can tell, the only pickup opportunities for Democrats. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. So it's, you don't need 51. And of course, Cinema's seat could be tricky. Gallego could be tricky.
It's a three-person race at this point.
So we'll see in that regard.
Yeah, and I mean, it'll be interesting too to see like which Democrat steps up in West Virginia. And it's very, very likely not going to go Democrat for sure. But they could just make a calculation. Running on abortion, running on things like abortion, running on protecting Social Security and Medicare. Maybe make it interesting, but. Like if the numbers in 2023 elections hold and there is depressed Republican turnout, this is a fairly unprecedented moment in terms of like what could happen. But the Senate map's not looking good.
No.
It's more about taking the House back for sure in 2024.
Well, you want to, if Joe Biden becomes president again, or if Donald Trump becomes president again, the idea of another Supreme Court justice seat opening up is for reals. Clarence Thomas is old. He, particularly if there's if the Democrats take the House, they might start investigating him. They're already starting to look at subpoenaing in the Senate. I think they put that off for a little bit. But Harlan Crow and Leo, what's his name?
Leonard Leo.
Leonard Leo. There could very well be a seat that opens up. I mean, it's always the case. Somebody could get hit by a bus, but, in some instances more likely than others. But it's going to be interesting. Hope springs eternal. But in this cycle, it's a tough one for Democrats in terms of the Senate. And then the question becomes, if Joe Manchin actually does run on no labels, how much damage does he do to the Democratic candidate, assuming for the moment that it's Biden, which I think is a pretty safe assumption, actuarial tables notwithstanding. Right now, we just had another third-party candidate, if you will, jump into the race, Jill Stein. So on the ballot right now, it's going to be, if we were to guess where everybody's at, it's going to be Trump, Biden, RFK, to the extent that he's gotten on any states. I'm not quite sure yet.
Cornel West.
Cornel West, to the extent that he's gotten any ballots. I don't know that he has yet. It's going to be Jill Stein. I imagine she'll be able to get onto some ballots. She's running with the Green Party.
Yeah.
And it could be Manchin. It could be a no labels candidate. And then presumably a libertarian candidate, though I haven't seen any real rumblings. I got taken off of the Libertarian Party email list. And so they don't
How
keep me
authoritarian
updated.
of them.
I know it. But this is the big fear that the Biden people have, is like third party candidates. And I don't know that it's just, I don't know. Jill Stein entering into the race, I think probably, I don't know if that she cannibalizes Cornel West or vice versa. Like, I don't know if that represents any more takeaway from Biden, although obviously the Green Party has a much better shot of getting on the ballot. And I imagine Jill Stein still has that money that she raised for the 2016 recount. And that should buoy her candidacy. And folks are saying, don't forget Cenk, but he is not, he's not eligible.
Yeah.
As a natural born citizen. And also, it doesn't matter. I don't think he's been able to get on a ballot yet.
Also, he's running as a Democrat.
Oh, that's right. He's running in
That's why it's not
he's
really
running in the
relevant.
primary. Right. He's not running as a third party candidate yet. And so that's where we're at. I guess we'll see. I think Joe Manchin takes from militant apathy. Cornel West was the Green Party. He was first the People's Party, then became the Green Party, and then became not the Green Party. And I don't even know who his new campaign manager is as of yet. It's been tumultuous, to say the least.
Yeah.
Let's go to the IMs. Star Fox. Sam, not sure if you paid attention to the Worcester elections this week, but the school committee swung back to being what Bill Shaner refers to as a townie jobs cartel. This includes Moms of Liberty associated candidate by the name of Kathy Roy. Oh, geez. That wants more liaison officers in schools reevaluating sex education for K through fourth grade. Oh, my God.
Moms of Liberty did not have a good election day, though.
Worcester's its own place. And supporting parents' rights when it comes to their children's education. The person she was running against is Nellie Medina. You may be familiar with. She does amazing work to actually help students and families in Worcester around the state. Side note, I think she'd be a great guest to talk about getting involved in your community. She lost by only 98 votes. Hey. If I understand if people are reluctant to vote for candidates on the national level, but we can't let the right continue to gain ground at the local level. Left is best. Love you all. Hi, Bumbler. Okay. Brooklyn Best. You see Eric Adams hired a lawyer for his campaign finance crimes. Could he be next? Yes.
Yeah. This seems like the drip, drip, drip about his ties to Turkey just keeps coming.
And I mean, just the way he raises money is suspect from a lot of different quarters, it seems like.
Yeah. Not the most buttoned up guy, but as we say, if you want to fight crime, you got to go get into the crimes yourself, right?
I don't know if you covered this because you obviously did the show yesterday after the debate. There was a moment that we missed. There was a couple of moments that we missed in the debate because we were probably drinking too much and talking over the people. I remember when Vivek was mad that Greg Gutfeld wasn't moderating the debate, but I didn't hear the part where he said it should be Joe Rogan and Elon Musk.
Oh, you didn't hear that?
No.
Yeah, Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, and Tucker,
And Tucker.
the three horsemen of the
Why
apocalypse.
not Kanye?
Well, usually it has to do with the network that's sponsoring the debate. Maybe in the future you won't see any, like, I feel like viewership was down something like 71% from where it was in 2016.
Yeah, it's because it's completely inconsequential and meaningless, and the only fun in the debate is when Trump talks trash.
Here is my pushback on that. This is clip number 9. If they had focused the debate more carefully on watching Ron DeSantis try and walk in his high heel shoes, I am quite convinced that ratings would have soared. Watch Ron DeSantis try and walk on his high heel shoes. I mean, this poor guy. This is something. Watch this.
How does these boots are made for walking intro go? It's like boom, 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 boom,
Boom, boom, boom, boom, boom, boom, boom.
Boots are made for walking.
These boots were not made for walking. Look how tentative he is. It's like if you've ever
That man is on stilts.
Yeah. I mean, or he's got some bad shin splints.
I'm telling you, folks, if you have ever, if you're a skater, ice skater,
Yeah.
and you've ever seen anybody walk on ice or even walk on skates off the ice,
Yeah, hockey players going into the tunnel.
it's the exact same, what do you call it? The exact same sort of gait.
Actually, I mean, that's what I don't wear heels a lot because I'm just not, it's just not for me. And that's how I look like in heels.
I mean, and my heart goes out to him.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
But here's the thing. I think
Practice at home.
I think he should lean into it because he's showing what he's willing to do for the American public.
And to affirm his own gender. I mean, like, that's the thing that I think is just...
He is, yeah.
Just needs that little extra
This is the way that he's
3.5
gonna get
inches
the
of
kids.
masculinity.
I mean, yeah, it's just like if you want to be a masculine man and you want to make sure that you're showing yourself like that, he feels that he needs to be taller, and I respect his right to perform his gender.
There is, that's a good, Plastic Ocean says, Stiletto Ron will be his new nickname.
Ron DiStiletto.
Ron DiStiletto. Ron DeStiltis.
I mean, Vivek did say in the debate, like, what do you call him? Something in 3-inch heels.
Well, I missed that he said.
No, he said that to Nikki Haley.
Well, he said it to. I thought
No, he was talking about DeSantis.
You're both right. You're both right. I went back and watched it, and he said there's a couple of Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels there, and he was referring to Haley and DeSantis.
Oh, that is good. People miss that. Yeah. That is good. Amazing. Since we're talking about the debate and the Republican primary, here is Steve Doocy, Ainsley Earhart, and Brian Kilmeade.
The Brain Trust.
The Brain Trust on Fox and Friends. And, they're at a decision desk. This is a little bit more heady than we're used to. But here they are talking about the debate. They were talking about the debate Wednesday night, but this is happening on Thursday.
Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis were, for the most part, the winners. Lee Carter's going to join us here in about 20 minutes and show us the dials. I saw on Drudge, it's not a scientific poll, but Nikki Haley won substantially. I was talking to people, they felt like Ron DeSantis was the winner. Here's the thing. We had 5 people on the stage last night. Tim Scott barely made it on the stage. He qualified by 1%. You got to figure those other... DeSantis and Haley way ahead for the most part. You got to figure it's time for Ramaswamy and Tim Scott and Chris Christie to start to consider
Tim
dropping
Scott
out.
stay in until South Carolina?
Here's the thing. Think about it this way. Right now, when you look at the Real Clear average polls, Donald Trump is at 55, 58%, something like that. That means 45% about of the Republican primary voters want somebody else. So it's time for a couple of those people to drop out and coalesce around one or two.
I thought you were going to say he has the highest rating. Donald Trump, he's not even on the stage. You combine their ratings, everyone who was on the stage, those 5, it's still less than Donald Trump is.
It is.
And remember, he had less when he won in 2016. I'll add something else.
But if somebody wants if somebody wants to be the alternative to Donald Trump, they got to coalesce around somebody.
Yeah.
But I know Chris Christie, it's hard to see a path. But man, is he good. He knows everything.
Such an
He's got
anti-Trumper.
experience. It's true. All I could say is it's very rare to find a candidate that has opinion and experience in just about everything.
Pause it for 1 second now. Is Ainsley Earhart he's such an anti-Trumper?
Yeah. Shut up.
Is she like?
She's dating Sean Hannity.
I know that. And so she's saying like that's a problem.
Yes.
Okay.
Because
I wasn't sure.
Hannity is embedded essentially with the Trump campaign.
Couldn't figure it out.
But I'm kind of shocked Kilmeade would even go for.
I'm surprised too. Yeah.
Well, also like Chris Christie is not a good candidate.
He's
Otherwise, he
not
would
at
be
all.
doing
Well,
better.
he's not a good candidate insofar as like amongst Republicans or Democrats or independents or New Jersey voters.
Yeah, 13%
Those are the first
approval
people I'm
rating
thinking.
when he left office, something around there.
Or the general electorate or the primary voters. But if you were to poll everybody at Morning Joe,
Other than that, yeah.
Yeah, he would be a great cable news host, and that
Bingo.
always translates
Well,
to elections.
not necessarily a great cable news host.
I'm sorry.
But replacement level guest on Morning Joe. But continue.
Knows
But he's
everything.
such an
He's got
anti-Trumper.
experience. It's
Such an
true.
anti-Trumper.
All I can say is it's very rare to find a candidate that has opinion and experience in just about everything, and he's willing and he's quick on his feet. I don't know, like the path there is anti-Trump, and there's not much of a path there to be anti-Trump. But when you watch him when he's not talking about Trump, his competence is noteworthy.
Yeah, no, I like watching him because he's so fiery and he's not afraid to go after people.
Actually, he didn't do that at all during that debate. She did not watch the debate. He specifically, and honestly, like I feel like it's probably not worth my time to spend any analysis on this. But as drunk as I was, Wednesday night, I could still see that Chris Christie radically changed his approach to the race.
Yeah. You pointed it out multiple times.
Specifically did not attack anybody and just played like he was the statesman. She did not watch the debate. She does not care.
They don't. Why would they care? I mean,
They don't.
Other than
Checks
the fact
coming
that
in
they're
anyway.
in news, yeah. But like, who would care about any of this garbage? Because it's completely irrelevant. I will never forget the feelings of watching these debates that are supposedly about the future of the nation, and them just being like entirely irrelevant to anything that's going on, because the real candidate is already the presumptive nominee, and that's Trump. And we haven't heard anything from him because he's all tied up in that civil fraud trial.
Yep.
And that's probably helping him a ton in these polls right now with Biden. His invisibility. People are starting to forget what it was like to have him in office. And that is very bad, but good strategy by his team, unfortunately.
I'm gonna come back like the second, like when Arrested Development came back, and everyone's gonna be ready for it.
Yeah. Right.
We're still seeing fallout from Tuesday, and I don't know if you remember this, and I can't remember which election it was, if it was 2008 or 2012. I think it was 2008, but I can't remember. Maybe 2012. There was a brief moment where it looked like, I think it was 2008, where the Republican Party was going to do an audit of itself based upon their relationship with immigration. I remember
It was 2012. It was 2012
Post-Romney,
after
Yeah.
Romney. Yeah.
And Sean Hannity was like, guys, we got to do this. And that lasted, honestly, surprisingly, for probably like a week and a half. And I was blown away by that because they were really convinced for a week and a half they were going to do that, which is about a couple of days shorter than everybody saying after January 6th, like Donald Trump should go to jail. All those Republicans, remember Mitch McConnell, gave a very impassioned speech. That lasted about 7 days.
Yeah, who was the head of the RNC at that point? Was that Steele?
In 2012, it may have been Steele.
Yeah. And he's a little bit too like reasonable for where the Republicans are at right now.
A little bit woke, if you know what I mean.
Well, I mean, if you believe Matt Schlapp, he was only there because he was.
Oh yeah, they're literally saying that
the right hue for what they were looking for.
Right. Oh, it was Priebus.
Right.
Yeah. RNC PRBS.
Yeah. Also, I mean, too woke to stay too long in the Trump administration.
And we played a clip of Sean Hannity, I think on Wednesday, saying like maybe we need to just do a 15-week thing and show how moderate we are on this. Now that's going to go away. Probably, well, it's Friday, so it's probably gone away. In fact, here's Michael Knowles really holding out hope that is pushing back on the idea that they should moderate, because everyone knows the truth that what the Republican Party fundamentally wants is to completely ban abortion on any level they can. It's not a states' rights issue. It was never a states' rights issue. That was just their expedient way of trying to get
rid of it as a right.
Get rid of it as a right. And here's Michael Knowles at least being honest in this regard.
It's a kernel of truth here. The kernel of truth is that the conservative argument on abortion, the conservative desire, the conservative goal is not merely to leave the issue to the states. A lot of conservatives said it for many, many years. We just want to overrule Roe v. Wade so that we can restore our democracy and return the matter of whether or not we should sacrifice our children to Moloch to the states where the matter belongs. Yes, that's right. Look, some states are going to protect their innocent little babies, and some states are going to sacrifice them to Moloch in the most gruesome and painful ways. And look, whatever you choose is totally fine. We just support choice and freedom of choice and choice of freedom and states and democracy and procedure. All we really care about is procedure. We don't care about the substance at all. Keep your baby, kill your baby. We don't care. We just want you to have the choice. No, that is not my understanding of what a conservative believes about the protection of innocent life. We had to get Roe v. Wade overruled because it created a ridiculous, unconstitutional license to abortion. But now we need to ban it. We just got to ban it, man. It's really bad. It's bad to kill kids, and it doesn't help anybody, and it hurts a lot of people. It doesn't help the mothers who are exploited by the abortion industry. It leaves them with trauma for the rest of their lives, rightly so, because they killed their kids. And you can move past trauma and you can be forgiven and receive absolution, but the psychological effect of that sticks with people for a long time. It doesn't help even the abortionists
Hold
who
on,
enrich
can we
themselves.
just do a quick fact check? That's not true. That's not true. There are how many abortions annually? I don't know. Tens of thousands annually, or certainly less now, because in some states. But this is not the case. Now, maybe he wants to pretend like he doesn't know anybody who's had an abortion.
Because they probably wouldn't tell him. But it is not the case. And it's also not the case that necessarily anybody cares about getting absolution either from his narrow church. But I will give him credit for telling the truth about the desire of conservatives to force people to carry pregnancies to term. Babies are outside of their womb. And what is inside the womb is fetus, potential babies, just like actually what's in eggs. Unfertilized eggs could also be potential babies. Semen. It needs an egg. Hey, it's NoFap November, Sam.
Yeah, to save the children.
I shouldn't have said semen.
Yeah. So,
Have some respect for all the lost.
But it is important to understand this is their, and he knows this, and they all know it. He won't play the game of trying to hide the ball because he's not a Republican politician like, let's say, someone like Mike
Nikki
Johnson.
Haley.
yeah, and I mean,
Haley.
he's so committed to life. That's why every day his show's been dedicated to the one child that's dying every 10 minutes in Gaza.
Well, there's life and then there's life, right? There's babies,
Capital
innocent
L
babies,
life,
innocent babies. You're not innocent if you are born
with brown skin.
Well, I guess you're not innocent even if you are conceived with the potential for brown skin in Palestine.
If
Then
you're a
you're
brown
not
Christian.
innocent.
Yeah.
You should not have done it.
Sorry, Amash.
And Fizzy Drinks wants to correct Matt. It's no nut November, not no fap. Big difference.
Oh, I apologize.
I don't really want to get into the specifics of that.
Voicemail is off. We'll take a couple of phone calls, ladies and gentlemen, with that as the what should we play here? Some protests here? Should we do the Let's
maybe a call and we'll figure it out.
Okay, well, we'll wait for our calls to fill up. I'll read a couple of IMs. Juniper J. So does Israel not want the hostages back? I don't think Bibi Netanyahu wants to open the door to the fact that you can, in fact, negotiate for the hostages with Hamas.
That would give up his pretext for bombing Gaza.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he understands the value of the hostages being hostages. It gives him, like you say, the pretense as to why they can be that much more vicious.
Although there are protests growing in Israel demanding Netanyahu stop this to get the hostages home,
And there's plenty of Palestinians incarcerated by Israel that they could have done a swap immediately and then, had
And we
the
know-
goodwill of not killing a bunch of civilians.
we know that Hamas offered the returns of hostages. That's now been the Washington Post and the Guardian that's reported this, and Netanyahu has said no because that would mean a ceasefire. He also doesn't want to deal domestically with the fact that there are definitely dead hostages under rubble, definitely. And then there's going to be an understanding in Israel, well, what were you doing to create that situation? He wants to bomb as much of Gaza as possible so that when these hostages, their bodies are eventually found, the cause of death, he could feasibly blame it on Hamas when it's going to be at his feet, that he indiscriminately bombed the areas where the hostages were.
They'll just ignore that the ceasefire and hostage trade call was ever made. They'll just say it was lies by terrorists.
Without a doubt. Dr. Dragon Rider, off topic, but would you be willing to have Emma do a segment on Thursday where she watches a clip of your pilot season show? They are short, and we have to remind people that Samwise Seder used to be someone.
Maybe in a slower news time.
Very slow. Jobby Boonier M. Okay. War on Santer. I don't understand why some New York Republican congressmen from New York or elsewhere can't see that several of them are already toast in 2024. And with that knowledge, change parties now. If just 5 of them do, they can flip the House, save the government, and gain the full support of the Democratic machine in New York and nationally. Why can't they see this is like the IDC in reverse for bigger prizes? Well, I mean, these people, it's conceivable that some people could do this, but you have to remember, a lot of them are culturally Republican, particularly in New York too. They've been isolated here, and they don't want to lose all their friends.
I mean, you're assuming that they're completely cynical and not ideologically Republicans.
Right. Or culturally Republicans,
Yeah.
and such that it wouldn't, a lot of these people are in Congress. I hate to say this because they like the lifestyle. They like how important it makes them amongst their crew. And the idea that they would be part of a different crew as Congress people is not quite as, I don't know, sexy. Calling from a 417 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, I have a weird question.
What's your name?
Dylan
What's your name?
Kentucky.
Dylan in Kentucky. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm curious about the politics now of Daniel Cameron most likely running for Mitch McConnell's Senate seat. And it got me thinking about Andy Bashir and how popular he is here. What the politics, good or bad, would be about maybe trying to run him again against Daniel Cameron for McConnell's seat. Or
Wait, so Daniel Cameron's going to primary McConnell?
No, Mitch
I
McConnell's
think
going to
McConnell will eventually. Yeah, I think he'll eventually retire, and Cameron's next up. And I'm just curious about the politics between potentially running Bashir against Cameron again for that seat, or how important it is to have someone like Bashir as governor of Kentucky stay where he's at.
I like that idea, but
I'll tell you why I think it's a problem.
Really?
Because, well, if you could sort of wave your wand and have that exist, but you're talking about Bashir quitting his governorship to run for senator?
I mean, he would have to.
Right. I think like, that becomes a real liability, right? Because then you look like you don't take anything seriously. Like you don't care about your responsibility to the state as governor. Plus, that's a risky
But
premise.
it'd be 26, right? Oh, God, it is. Yeah, so no, his term is, never mind. My math was wrong. So he would have to leave halfway through his term then.
But I don't know. There's got to be other politicians in Kentucky that could maybe take him on.
Who could take on Daniel Cameron?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. But it's just that Andy Bashir is so popular. And I agree with everything you said. I was just curious how important you think it might be to keep someone like Andy Bashir as the governor.
If your argument is, to the people in Kentucky, it probably is. He's going to have more impact on the daily lives there, right?
You saved lives
things
during
like,
COVID. Right?
Yeah. In terms of like abortion rights and, paying for educators and et cetera, et cetera. This is going to be more important for people in Kentucky. He can do more for the people of Kentucky as governor. He can do more for the country in some respects as a senator from Kentucky. But, if it's just like a sheer, like if I could wave a magic wand type of thing, I don't know. I would hate to leave the people in Kentucky high and dry there, although there is a certain inevitability at one point when he's not governor.
What about Charles Booker again?
Yeah, I don't know. What's your sense, Charles Booker?
I like Charles Booker, but that's about as far as my sensibilities get with him. And anybody that could replace McConnell, I'm for. He's got such deeply entrenched name recognition that I'm just afraid that any Democrat is going to struggle unless you are someone as immensely popular as Andy Bashir is. And that's the only reason it made me curious about the whole proposition, I guess.
Well, interesting thought experiment. Appreciate the call.
Okay. Thanks, bye.
It just wouldn't happen, I don't think. Not in my hood. Don't give your family the wrong MR blend. I gave my family the majority blend, and they all developed delusions of grandeur and incited an insurrection. And the Feldman blend just made my whole family uncomfortably horny.
God.
Jesus.
Strong coffee.
Koshak forever. What up, team? My fiance, Catherine, just got discharged from the hospital today after major back surgery. Been a long road to get here, and dealing with the American healthcare system's been a nightmare. But we're finally on the other side of it. Can I get a shofar for her efforts? Left is best. Yes, you can. Sigma Boy, my friend who's lost 68 members of her family in Gaza, confronted Elizabeth Warren in a restaurant last night. JVP Boston posted the clip on Twitter. You guys should show it.
I saw that clip. Yeah.
I just sent it to you in the IMs, I think, earlier. Let's pull that up. It's been a huge disappointment to watch some of the more progressive senators in the Senate not call for a ceasefire when folks like Dick Durbin, although his people tried to walk it back, and Murphy, are, close to that. And to see progressive senators not doing that. But here is folks from, I guess this is the Boston chapter of Jewish Voices for Peace, a Jewish Voice for Peace. Yes, and I don't know who the woman is confronting, but she is a Palestinian woman who lost 68 family members in Gaza as Elizabeth Warren is at dinner in Cambridge, Mass.
Senator, thank you. Can I bring you some water to get started? Of course, we have tap water. We also have bottled water. I have 68 members of my family killed over the last 5 weeks. I just don't know how many more have to die before you're going to call for a ceasefire. I don't know. What do you want to tell me? Wait, I mean, what do I have to do? How many more of my family have to die for you to call for a ceasefire? I don't know. Like, how much more do I have to say for you to call for a ceasefire? People in your office every day asking me to call for a ceasefire, and you are refusing to call for a ceasefire.
I don't think this is the proper place for it.
I mean, what did Warren even say? Why was there that weird cut there?
Well, I think she's saying, I'm sorry for your loss.
Okay. Well,
it's a real drag. I mean, it's just shocking and horrible.
I'm. It's more expected from Warren, whose foreign policy has not been as good as someone like Bernie Sanders. But what is Bernie doing here?
Yeah.
He's saying a lot of good things, but then he acts like saying ceasefire is like...
He's undermining, ultimately they're undermining, when he's saying you can't have a ceasefire with Hamas, he's undermining the entire international left and even human rights organizations that are saying you can.
And his former staffers who are speaking out against him. I listened to Jim Zogby, who worked on the Bernie Sanders campaign, is an Arab American, essentially saying he's confounded by this lack of leadership on Bernie's part. The best case scenario here is that Bernie's trying to be judicious with his political capital, but he's blown it already, and I have to assume that it's because he's speaking closely with the Biden administration on this front and say, just don't say those words. But dude,
he said him in 2021. He said ceasefire. This must stop.
So what is this? What is he getting even in exchange for this? Unless it's just completely ideological, which.
I don't want it.
I don't think it's ideological.
That can't be.
I think
It can't
he's
be.
making some calculation. That's what a couple of weeks ago Ryan Grimm, I think, speculated as well. Was that there's some type of political calculation that under a Biden 2025 administration, in the event that there's that it'll give Bernie an opportunity to be owed something in terms of domestic stuff, but I don't know.
I'll pay off my student loans if it can stop this fucking bombing. From this HuffPost piece, Democratic staffers told that, I think this is one you mentioned with Jeet, but this is a couple paragraphs. Another staffer said it did not occur to her superiors that some constituents would have personal ties to Gaza, which she realized when a caller said the bombardment had just killed most of his friend's family. The statement we're authorized to use doesn't contain any sympathy, the staffer said. It isn't part of any statement to say, I'm so sorry what happened to you. She went off script to tell the caller she was sorry.
Of course. I mean, because people don't even consider that there are Palestinian Americans, apparently. Even Democrats who are supposedly trying to lead the way on this. It is a stark reminder about the dehumanization of Muslims and Arab Americans in this country that has been in place since as long as I've been alive and seems to be unyielding.
And then we sent Rashida Tlaib because supposedly she's cryptically calling for the eradication of Israel, as all these people, even down to the advice they give to staffers, eradicates the existence of Palestine.
Yep. Let's go to the phones. Calling from a 308 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 308.
Oh, is it me?
Yep.
Is it me?
Yep.
Sam, how are you?
Good. Who's
Calling
this?
from, can you hear me?
Yeah. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Timmy from Nebraska.
Who from Nebraska?
Timmy.
Timmy from Nebraska. Will you get off your speakerphone, Timmy?
You know what? I can. I have earpods in. Just one moment.
Oh God, earpods, folks. They're not good. I don't like. You don't want to call anybody on your earpods because they
No.
don't work.
It's just not feasible when they're here and you speak and
It's
project
not
here.
where people's mouths are.
They need to fix that. Hello?
I'm sorry. I thought it was acceptable. I didn't.
No, we're just
I
yelling at
thought-
Apple. It's
Yeah,
fine.
you're
We're
okay.
not yelling
What's
at you.
going on?
But of course, my phone's all freaking out. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can. What's on your mind?
Yeah. I don't know. This is kind of maybe down the conspiratorial thought process, but you know, I've seen a lot of talk from, or at least tweets from Republicans, kind of, you know, doing a lot of work to tie Iran into having some part in the attack on Israel. Of course, you know, there's things to, like, I suppose, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous.
You're doing fine.
But the, you know, they're banging that drum of, you know, sort of increasing containment and encirclement of Iran. But what I thought, I saw something very interesting in that there's an event going on, put on by the Log Cabin Republicans, called something like the Lincoln Gala, in which one of the recent honorees of that gala is going to be Reza Pahlavi, who happens to be the oldest son of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. And I don't know, it just seems kind of odd that they have this sudden interest in this person. If you look at some of the work he's been doing recently, he's talking about, you know, Iran having, you know, some democratic roots. But he only really is talking about, you know, whatever they had prior to 1979. He never is talking about the actions that happened in 1953, where
Mossadegh.
they got rid of Mossadegh.
Okay.
So I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into that, but I
no,
wanted
look,
to
I
hear
think,
you guys' thoughts
and
on
just
that.
so people know, Pahlavi is I guess like what would he be? The king in absentia, or like the prince? What? The Shah? Yeah, I'm not
the
sure
Shah
exactly what
monarch.
Yeah, the monarch in absentia. And I mean, look, they are always trying to come up with a way of regime change in Iran. They will always be waiting for an opportunity to call for an attack on Iran. I mean, this has been going on for ages. John McCain, 15 years ago, literally got up and started singing to that Beach Boys song, Bomb, 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 Iran. I mean, that's what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump rolled back the Iran deal because he was told that's what they want. I mean, he was completely, he didn't know. And so I don't think this happened because of that. I think these things happen because people are opportunistic in politics. You know, I mean, this is why you develop proposals and policies for domestic politics. And then if the opportunity comes where you can implement it, it's there and it's on the shelf. So I don't think this stuff is part of that, but it's not because of that. But I appreciate the call. Good job. Someone who was nervous, you
Did a great job.
did a great job. I think we got time for another call. Calling from a 917 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Ross from New York.
Ross from New York. What's on your mind?
So I've been going back and forth with my brother about how frustrated I have been with our politicians about the Palestinians being wiped out, and just the general way that our politicians are behaving. Like any subject I see them talking about, if it's on C-SPAN or something else, there's no depth or anything. And as I was talking to them, I kind of realized that I'm not seeing that there are people who are trying to do that work, who are trying to help us understand what the heck is going on in any sort of significant issue. We just don't have enough of them. Like I was watching on Instagram, Kasim Rashid running for office, and he does a thing in his Instagram feed where he picks a topic and he breaks it down and he gives you correlation. You just reminded me I have to look up to see if he had won. And I really loved the thoughtful way he was bringing it together. There's a woman who was running for mayor in Charleston, South Carolina. She lost. Her name is Mika Gadsden. But she was doing something incredibly interesting. She would stream 3 times a week on any topic, whether it's about transgender rights or the environment, and specifically Palestine. She did quite a few of those. And she would actually show documentaries on there and interviews with other people that would break these things down, because she believed that an informed constituent would make her city better. She would share books that she was reading, and when people would share things they were consuming, all of a sudden she'd come back a month later and you find out that she read it or watched it and then started talking about it.
I mean, I think, I think there are, AOC does some of that on her Instagram account, is my understanding. I mean, younger politicians tend to do that. I mean, on both sides, I guess.
But let me just say too, like, oh, sorry, go on.
No, I mean, I think it's obviously it's really helpful, but you can't mandate it. But yeah, it's very helpful.
It is helpful. And let's just also, point out, I would say, that looking to politicians for your education on this front, it's just not the right way to go. Like, because the conversation around Israel-Palestine in particular is so Western focused, you really have to look to academia. You have to look to international human rights organizations on this front, because even our progressive representatives have to be conscious of that context when they're speaking out about this. So, like, I think why a lot of people have difficulty with this particular topic is because everything surrounding us is a biased Western perspective, and the rest of the world just doesn't see it the way the United States or other white wealthy nations do.
I mean, I know how a lot of people who are sort of afraid to really confront this issue, when they hear somebody recommend Rashid Khalidi, or they say, well, he's Palestinian, he's biased, or Ilan Pappy, well, he's self-hating. Like, there's a lot of our culture is really ingrained into aversion to that. I think because there's been like a lot of cowardice on the issue from people who should know better. But we played the clip of what Saeed had to put up with yesterday.
Yeah.
Like things are improving, and there just needs to be more of it.
Appreciate the call.
So I know. Oh, well, I'm sorry. I know you have to go. One, I want to say that mayor, Mika Gadsden for Charleston, she does that. She pushes you to go out and get your information internationally and so forth like that. And part of the reason I found you guys, I wanted to mention, and you guys are my sanity break, even when you're talking about the most painful subjects. I don't know how that works, but it makes me feel a little more sane, and I appreciate how conscious you are about how you present information and you analyze it. I noticed that. I appreciate it so much, and thank you.
Well, thank you. Kind words. Appreciate it. Thanks for the call. Howdy, Emma. Majority Report with Veterans Day upon us. I want to thank Sam for his 8 combat tours in the war on Christmas. Many people don't know this, but Sam actually fought through a peppermint gas attack. He suffers from eczema due to his exposure to this very day. We also appreciate Matt's contributions. He was one of the guards at the prison camp for the elves, or as he would call them, pointy-eared bastards. He was in charge of shoving Ensure down their throats so he wouldn't die during their torture sessions. Jingle bells has a whole new meaning to it when it involves jumper cables. That's how we found out Santa was building weapons of mass destruction while we're using climate change to wipe out the North Pole. Never forget, War on Christmas, says Kowalski.
I knew. I was going to ask, is that Kowalski? Because the harvest's been dragging on a little bit down there in Nebraska.
Let's read a couple more IMs. Oh, wait. Should we do this Jordan Peterson thing? Have you seen this, Matt?
Is this his art piece? The postmodernist drinking song? Yeah.
What's going on with this? Can you set this up? I mean, I know that you.
That's a tough question.
You have a master's degree in literature, and maybe this will
I would need a master's
the faculties to decipher, at least contextualize what we're about to watch.
I think I don't know if literature is going to help. I think we would need more of psychology.
We need like a magic
here.
school bus situation where we get to go into Jordan Peterson's brain to just see all the little nooks and crannies of this almost just like medical marvel that he's able to exist at this point.
When did he put this out?
Last week, and I have seen this. There's one thing that's kind of interesting is there's a denigration of people who work fast food jobs right up the top of the head. He's playing that sort of character, which I think is kind of undermines a lot of the whole like this guy's going to work. Anyway. But I don't know if you're familiar with the song that this is going to be covering. I know
absolutely not.
Is that
is it some dirge?
It's some like old, maybe some. I think there's some UK listeners.
Yeah, in the YouTube description it says it's based off an old English folk song, "The Ballad of Lydia Pinkham," by way of a 1960s British pop group, The Scaffold.
All right, so he's trying to be current.
Reached number
Yeah,
one
exactly.
in the
That
charts.
exactly, Emma. Because
well, I guess we'll watch it and then we could sort of decipher what this is supposed to be.
Yeah, the song that he's covering is from the 60s, from The Scaffold, which we all
are
know
people
about.
still talking about the postmodernists? I mean, are we
that's
in
the thing,
cultural
Sam,
Marxism? This is like haven't they moved on to the next chapter of? And to be clear, the next chapter is going to be the same as the previous chapter, but they're going to change the terms a little bit, and they get to make it seem like it's fresh. Like
yeah, that's the problem.
Tea Party becomes, Freedom Caucus or
cancel culture.
Cancel culture,
yeah.
or being
political
woke.
correctness.
It's cancel. Yeah, exactly.
It's also partially based off Monty Python's "The Philosopher's Song."
Again,
another great
kids.
reference that all the kids love these days is that Monty Python stuff. That definitely ages well. So we can play this a little bit.
Well, that's why it's art. It's not meant necessarily for people to enjoy. It's more for my personal expression.
Where the song is like from the 60s, all the references are from the 80s. So, I don't know any of these people's names.
So
really.
it's not postmodern in any sense. It's actually quite antique.
It's postmodern, which makes it even that much more postmodern. You Philistines. Go ahead. Let's see what we got.
Dirty room.
Oh,
that's the whole thing.
I see.
He's one of his guys that he gives him advice to. He works at Taco Gulag. Got the Employee of the Month. So like right there, it pisses me off because it's like this whole like, I'm actually sticking up for the forgotten man thing that the Atlantic will credit this guy with doing. He's denigrating people. This guy won Employee of the Month at a fast food place. Like anybody doing that, one needs to like pick up Karl Marx. You're working way too hard.
And how did he do that if he doesn't have a clean room?
That's another good question. Maybe actually there's some kind of tension there between putting too much into your job that isn't paying you enough and things falling apart at home. But I don't know if that's really the message that they're sending here.
I don't think so. I'm a loser. There we go. I have achieved nothing.
I'm prideful in my wage work, and that's ludicrous, apparently.
For the love of God, man, I want to be a resentful taco delivery boy. There's a real hell on earth. You know, I had a guy come up to me.
We'll drink and drink and drink till there's no more drink and drink till drink to save his love. And know the universe for invented.
Funny stuff.
You've left yourself an absolute mess.
Michel Foucault was a genuine pervert, and it made him awful sad. He invented philosophical doctrines designed to drive us off like mad.
All the kids talk about Foucault.
Pause it for 1 second. So he is critiquing Foucault and doing it in a, I guess the idea is like, what is the Venn diagram of people who have read Foucault, are in some way like under his his paradigm has become their way of life. And the way that you're going to turn them around, those Foucault readers, is by making a song parody.
I think what this is, if we're going to credit with being anything other than like a guy's mental breakdown, is him, again, flattering his audience that, oh, I've seen the lay of the intellectual land, and I can diminish it with a parody. I think that's probably the most charitable.
And he also gets to watch himself on TV, which is his dream.
Exactly, I am not only the subject of this, but also I'm featured as a claymation figure talking to me.
The production value here surpasses the actual idea in such an extreme degree.
And I get to mock people with green hair.
Yeah, that do that because of Foucault.
Right. That's his daughter? That's his daughter. Go back. That's his daughter, right? Okay. All right. We don't need to go back, but it's just...
People who have green hair are ridiculous. People who wear the suits I wear, they're just being funny and expressive.
And what's with like the drinking? It's a drinking song, I guess?
It's a drinking song, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is he denigrating people that drink?
Who knows?
Probably a little bit, yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
I guess,
meat only.
But only prescription pills for some.
Well, why not?
Satirize, multiplying all around us. It's time we cut them down to size. We'll drink and drink till there's no more think and think like this to save yourself. And know the universe, how they invented philosophical notions, deconstructed in every way. Dr. Rita,
of course, Derrida.
So many shots back to him watching, and I'm not sure what it's meant to indicate.
Pause it. I'm just going to say that was probably a coincidence that they shot to Shapiro playing the violin by saying they're pretentious in every way. Like, they don't mean Shapiro, right? That's just a coincidence.
Yeah, I think they're
We're just using his music.
Somehow he's in on that joke, even though the most obvious interpretation of that is like, yeah, he's pretentious, and he talks about like how rap isn't music, but classical music.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Again, there's way too many shots of Peterson watching.
Richard Rorty.
Don't know who that is.
Richard Rorty. Is truly not helpful. Is truly not helpful.
This is so myopic and like.
Nothing's real. Call me pig.
Can you just pause it for a second? You know how when you can tell people are kind of like untethered from reality is when they're really convinced that their own kind of personal gripes and obsessions are that of the rest of the world. Like, I have to be conscious of that all the time when talking about like football or something like that. Like, this is my thing. I'm obsessed with it, but I mostly have a good grasp that other people, don't care about the New York Giants offensive line in the same way that I do. Jordan Peterson has none of that understanding, and in fact, he amplifies his like myopic obsessions for the rest of the world, and then acts like they're genius.
Rorty's another philosopher that I only know that because of Rorty Bomb. Is Mike Consol's
that's fun.
was his and I think years ago I looked that up. But this is the thing that you do when you are at the academic conference that is held annually, and they do a talent show at the end. And you do like
inside jokes about other people in your field.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating about this, and this is what reminds me of, I think we've talked about this in the past, and I've been on some show talking about it. Danny Aiello was in the Madonna video, Papa Don't Preach.
Mm-hmm.
Madonna was a big, pop star back
Papa
when I was,
Don't Preach rocks.
Yeah. And
on the era of all the names that Peterson's mentioned.
Exactly. And Danny Aiello was in this video, and he had a little bit of a short run on Della Ventura and made some money, and his son became a director and was directing parts of those. And he went out, and this is pre-digital video. This is when you got to shoot 16 millimeter film.
Mm-hmm.
And he went out and shot a rebuttal to Papa Don't Preach, which was Papa just wants the best for you. And
it's a banger.
It is one of the most insane things you've ever seen. And you realize at the time too, like to shoot a 16 millimeter short film was a big deal. It could cost like tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
Short. And he's probably, bringing in his son. He's got some favors and this and that. But it was, I remember, and this is like in the mid 90s, I remember thinking like, this is, you rarely see this type of insanity with this level of production value.
Yeah.
Now it is, it's a different era, and video exists, and it's easier to do. But that's what I would say this is. This is like, this would have been okay if he went up and sang it at the conference of philosophers, and people are like, oh.
People have had a few drinks, enjoying it.
I've
Not
been
as many drinks as
practicing it.
the
I
people
wrote it
on
myself.
TV. Yeah.
I've been practicing it. I hope I can do it. Maestro, if you could get on the piano.
Should we watch a little bit of Aiello?
Here's the Papa. Papa just wants the best for you. This is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. I remember watching this. I have a video of it somewhere. It's like 16 years ago, and I don't know who put this up, but
Good
here
for
it is.
them.
Already good.
Yep.
I mean, this is already more catchy than, I guess it's because it's closer to Papa Don't Preach than whatever he was singing there.
They're playing football at the construction site, and then they're getting off.
Hard day of work and playing.
Well, the best
touch
is
football.
at one point, like,
Papa's not preaching, just trying to show you the right from the wrong. I'm only reaching out for the things that will help you along. Before your mama passed away, she made me promise every day.
yeah, see that?
This is emotionally
I would
manipulative.
take care of her baby.
It's just a dad to his daughter.
Help her grow into a fine young lady. Papa just wants
He's asking around, have you seen my daughter anywhere?
to be proud.
No? Darn it, you kids sitting on the steps. Officer, have you seen my daughter around anywhere? Here's a picture. I haven't. Oh, don't tell any of the other cops. Will you do me a favor? Wait, is that her?
This is what dads had to do before cell phones.
Yep. Oh my God.
He's going to run. He loves to run.
Papa Don't Preach was like a sexually liberatory song for a young woman. But what if we just centered the dad instead?
Not my daughter.
This scene I always really like too, because it's like, wait, what is he doing? Like, what? Why are they just
manual labor.
hardworking man.
Breaking.
You can tell from all the muscles he has.
He's mad. My daughter's got a boyfriend too. Look, I'm just gonna.
That's what work looks like.
I'm just gonna.
At least this is original composition.
Yeah. Look at that family. There's almost some class
My
consciousness in there, but it's really, God darn it.
She's
How
with
come
Jimmy
he gets to get
till
it done?
4 in the morning.
So here, I'm going to go into this club and see if she's around. Hey, excuse me. Have you seen this girl? Hey, have you seen this girl? Excuse me. Excuse me. Can I show you a picture? Hey, anybody? Have you seen this girl?
The lighting is. I'm struggling to see anything.
Oh, it's getting pushed.
Get this dad out of here.
Get out of here,
He loves
Dad.
his daughter too much.
Yeah, we should say this was shot at a time where this was on. This is undoubtedly.
Oh, he's a tough guy.
I'm gonna put. I'm not taking
He
my
was whipping
jacket
on the
off
bag
for
like
this.
every
I'm not,
other punch.
I work out in the same
He's
clothes.
bare knuckling as he boxes.
Hey, pause it for 1 second. I just want to be clear. People understand. This was shot on film and then immediately converted to VHS so you could watch it. And so there were only VHS copies.
Yeah.
And so it didn't get converted from film to digital, it get converted from VHS.
Yeah,
and
we
that's
need the
why it
remaster.
looks so sort of like muddy.
I want the 4K version from film.
All right, keep going here. This is.
I mean, you asked us to give you a heart out at 2:30. I'm just telling you, or we could keep
Oh
watching.
gosh, yo, sorry.
The
sorry.
Papa
Okay.
wants the best
folks,
for
you're
you
gonna
music
have to,
video.
You're gonna have to look for the rest of Papa Don't Preach and what is his?
No, Papa just wants the best
Papa
for
just
you.
wants the best for you. And what is Jordan Peterson's?
The postmodernist drinking song.
So Papa just wants the postmodernist drinking song, and you can see that on YouTube.
Aiello crushes him. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
It's so much better.
Talking to Norm
So much better. So much better.
The nice thing about the Aiello song is, as somebody who's not a father, I can totally relate now to what it's like to have a daughter.
Yep.
There you go.
Looking for her everywhere.
So.
And the most important thing about having a daughter is that it's about you.
Of course. Folks, that ends the phone call portion of our program. I've got to jump off because I'm going to go on the Valley Labor Report in moments. You can find, we'll put a link in there. You can watch that. And I'll be on for an hour. Let's read a couple IMs and then I get out of here for the end of the week. Lazy Bread Ward. Just like when we unionized management came forward and said we've had no idea people were so unhappy even though they were vocal about it. Please. You don't even need life knowledge and smarts to be president. Hugo's Burgers. Come on, Matt or Bradley. You did Jeet dirty with that thumbnail, LOL.
Thumbnail?
Star Fox. Don't know. I think we already read from Star Fox. Give us a Worcester update. Buckets and Buckets. Sam, what would be the proper term for a larger country forcing two separate countries or smaller groups into something unpopular with both smaller countries?
I think this is an opposition to a one-state solution. And I'd just say the opposition within Israel to any kind of solution, whether it's one state or two state, is an international problem. And I don't think it's democracy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure why I even understand what the question is. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if either is, reachable. The idea of like of getting rid of 700,000 settlers, they'll have a civil war there. But
I mean, that's why Tony Judd and Avi Shlaim and Ilan Pappy say one state and you protect everybody rather than trying to do a binational.
And the thing is, if you have one state and you're trying to protect everybody, it makes it much easier to protect everybody. Graham Page. I don't like government lists, but if anyone votes for Manchin under no labels, list them. All right, two more. Duncan, Idaho, stop. Please, God, turn it off. I don't know which one you're talking about, but that applies to everything we just did in the last. And the final IM for the week. Rob from Dedham. You know who's been good on Israel, Palestine? Ralph Nader. He's devoted the last 3 weeks. I think he's of Lebanese descent, if I remember correctly. He's devoted the last 3 weeks of his podcast, which features the friend of the program, David Feldman, and a bonus episode with Lara Friedman, which I find a must listen. If you think Ralph had run as a Democrat, he could have made a better impact electorally. Maybe. I mean, I do think that in terms of actual change, regardless of whether you perceive it as incremental or, too incremental or is done in primaries, frankly, at least on a national level or federal level. Ron DeSantis walking like Bill Walton in '88. Indeed.
Just one note, Columbia has suspended Columbia SJP and Columbia JVP.
Jewish Voice for Peace?
Jesus.
The university.
Yeah.
Donors are calling.
That's what Noah Colwin has retweeted. So keep an eye on that.
Disgraceful, and history will remember this moment.
Bradley, Matt, Emma, great job this week, folks. We'll see you. Also a great job to John Ahrens and Dorsey Shaw and Maria and Chris and Isaac and the guys on the AM Quickie. Corey and Jacob.
Yeah, first week for Jacob.
Check out AM Quickie at amquickie.com. And Julie, my sister, also a great job this week. Folks, see you on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there.